What? Bang!
Whoa! Wrestling podcast. Just when they think they got the answers, I change the question.
Rep screwed rep.
Yeah! Woo!
Who are you to doubt El Dan? Because this guy's a serious professional.
Did he do it? Unbelievable!
Too hot to handle and too cold to hold. And I am the Macho King Savage.
Shut your mouth, you thong-wearing fatty! I said WWE stands for! It's me, Austin! I will never retire!
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Hey, yo, Pro Wrestling Podcast listeners, welcome to the show where we don't sing it, we bring it. Help us out and click subscribe to show your support today. Are you sick and tired of dropping $60 to $100 for the latest and greatest wrestling video game? Stop immediately. Go to Wrestler Unstoppable, available now to Facebook users totally free. Create a wrestler, sign contracts, get into storylines, headline PLEs, even build your own corporation from the ground up, all included in Wrestler Unstoppable, available now to all Facebook users totally free. If you want to become a member of the Pro Wrestling Podcast family and you want your name in the shout-outs, like my good buddy John down in Texas. John, love giving you that shout-out. Check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/Pro Wrestling Podcast. Sign up today. Don't forget we got loyalty rewards. $15 a month contributors get to co-host a show with myself. $7.50 a month you get entered into a drawing to also co-host a show with me. And much like my good buddy John down in Texas, we are working on some Patreon exclusive content that'll be out shortly to all of our Patreon subscriber listeners. Hello everybody, welcome to this episode of the Pro Wrestling Podcast. If you've got questions, comments, something you want me to touch on in the future episode, give us a call. Pro Wrestling Sound Offline 267-642-1160. We will get to those comments, questions, and anything else you want us to go over in a future episode. Let's look at the news for the day. And the big thing I think that's really rubbing me the wrong way this week is the situation with Ridge Holland and WWE. For those who have been sleeping under a rock or have no idea what I'm talking about, Ridge Holland, former NXT superstar, former rugby player, called up to the main roster, part of the Brawling Brutes. He's the guy who accidentally broke Big E's neck and then eventually transitioned back to NXT and has recently been released from WWE. Let's add some context to that whole little vine there that I went down. When this gentleman was on the main roster, he voluntarily went to management and asked for a demotion to NXT and negotiated to take $200,000 less salary to help out, to go down and tweak his character, build more recognition, more clout to his character in NXT to then later be called back to the main roster. He goes down to NXT, gets injured, out for, about 8-9 months, comes back, gets into another storyline. At one point, won the Tag Team Championship in NXT with Chase U, only to turn on them. But eventually, what we get to is he goes to TNA Wrestling with no additional pay for performing in TNA shows, and he gets injured in TNA and is on the shelf out of action. WWE comes to him and tells him that they are not going to renew his contract. The issue is his contract is scheduled to expire November 14th of this year, long before he's able to earn a living as a professional wrestler elsewhere, because of the injury he suffered while not getting paid, doing extra duty, helping TNA in this WWE TNA partnership. I did see on the Wrestling Observer YouTube channel where Dave Meltzer had made reference to the fact that he felt that WWE was looking to possibly cut Ridge Holland before he went back to NXT, and that this was a way to keep his job and try to reinvent himself, and I appreciate all that, but it really doesn't change how I feel about this. This is a guy who got hurt on the job, and now he's being left out to dry. He was online. He was complaining about how he's really screwed here. He has no income coming in now, and he can't work. He can't sustain himself. He's worried about losing his house, all this other stuff. He had some profanity thrown in there, and if you tune into this show often, you know I try to deviate away from that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, he was very upset about the situation he's in. Now, it's bad enough that as of November 14th, he was going to be without an income, without much of a way to earn one. I'll get to that in a minute. But now, because he vocalized his concerns, WWE has already told him they weren't renewing his contract, but technically he was still under contract being paid until November 14th. And because he spoke out about how frustrated he is, they've literally terminated his contract and fired him now for cause. So now, he not only can he not earn money after his contract runs out, but his contract is over. So he loses a couple weeks' pay. Now, I don't know what that amount of money is. I really don't, especially if he took a pay cut to go down to NXT level pay. But at the end of the day, this reeks of bad business, not necessarily in that they were going to probably get rid of the guy anyways, and he would have had to go figure something else out. I understand. Look, accidents happen. People get hurt in the ring. I'm not blaming WWE because he got hurt. But think about the black eye this puts on TKO and the way they handle business. Earlier in the year, Carl Anderson hurts his shoulder. He's out. They release him while he's injured. Now, Ridge Holland, injured. They release him again. Professionally speaking, that is something that Vince McMahon, for all the things we could say about Vince McMahon and his character and the way he handled business, that is not something Vince McMahon ever would have done when he was in charge of WWE. He would have taken care of talent until they were able to earn an income, and then he would have let them go. Now, it may seem heartless to still let them go, but at least they could go out and earn a living when they were injured. Heck, he got a promotion in AEW where Tony Khan hires people and sits them at home for months and years at a time, still earning an income. And here's TKO, the biggest company in the world, making more money than ever in the history of the business, and somehow they can't afford to keep this guy on payroll for a couple weeks or even till he recovers. Now, he did emphasize that they are paying for his medical issues and PT and all that kind of stuff, but it's not enough. It's just not enough. Now, can he downsize? Can he, save his home? Whatever. I don't know. I don't know his situation. I don't need to know his situation. What I know is if I'm a wrestling talent and I have to choose between WWE and AEW, and I see that Tony Khan has who knows how many people on the payroll who still get a paycheck and who are still being taken care of no matter what their injury status is. Like, for example, in the news today, Adam Cole announced way back at Double or Nothing that when he was TNT champion, that he had to relinquish the championship because he had to deal with some personal issues. It's come out since then that those personal issues have to do with concussion issues. He is still experiencing concussion issues. Has no plan. There are no plans in AEW to bring him back anytime soon. Yet Tony Khan is still paying him, and it was noted today that Tony Khan expects to try to keep him on the roster as long as possible. Think about the difference in approach here. If I'm a wrestler who's looking to sign a new contract, who do you sign with? WWE for the huge exposure, traveling the world, the fame, the recognition, fine. If that's what motivates you, I get it. And I'm not saying if I was given the opportunity to go to one or the other, I wouldn't necessarily choose WWE either. However, if you think about it from a sustainability standpoint and look at it from being able to take care of your family, pay your bills, and know that you're covered, AEW just became much more of a realistic option. Not to mention the fact that they're offering big money contracts anyways, because Tony Khan seems to pay very well. So, I don't know. I don't like the look for WWE. I understand it to a degree that they didn't want to keep him anyways. But when you wait till a guy is hurt and disabled, essentially, from being able to earn a living, very messed up. Very, very messed up. He also referenced that he may need neck fusion, all this other stuff. It's just not a bad situation. Well wishes out to Ridge Holland. He does have a GoFundMe up there. I saw a few people donated to it. Chelsea Green, amongst others, donated to his GoFundMe account. So definitely something to keep an eye on. Really a shame to see a guy who's, trying to make a go of this profession be treated that way. On the topic of Tony Khan, got to get into the other thing that I feel like is somewhat controversial this week. We have Full Gear right around the corner. We have Tony Khan coming out on X this week, speaking about a new men's championship being introduced, that they're going to have a casino gauntlet match to crown the first ever national champion for AEW. They compared the lineage or the basically the history of the national championship to that of the NWA national championship from back in the day. They made reference to the fact that it'll be defended in AEW, in New Japan Pro Wrestling, Ring of Honor, CMLL, and the Indies. Look, here's the thing. It's a couple things. One, every AEW championship is able to be defended anywhere, and many of them have been defended elsewhere before, so I don't feel like having a championship that travels is any different than anything you already had. That's part one. Part two, you had an All-Atlantic Championship that turned into the International Championship, that turned into the Continental Championship, that merged with the another championship to become the whatever they call it now. I don't even know what the heck Okada's championship is called anymore, because of the Unified Championship. So now you got all these championships you had before you rounded up and wrangled together to make into one championship. And now here comes another championship back out. And somebody made reference, I forget which program it was, I apologize, probably on Busted Open, talking about how if it's a television championship, isn't that what the TNT Championship and the TBS Women's Championship were? That's why they're named after television networks. They're essentially supposed to be like television championships. So if they're the television championships, is this almost like the Intercontinental or the United States Championship? And if that's the case, look, I get it. That's like giving a mid-card title and having a TV title being separate. But at some point, like all these championships, they have to mean something. Now, I'm in the minority here. I'm probably a suspect when it comes to diehard fans. There's a lot of people who are like, we have too many championships in wrestling. When I used to watch, and I'm old enough, I apologize to my fans who are much younger than me, so bear with me on this boring old stuff, but I can remember watching NWA Worldwide Wrestling Saturday mornings, and you would have people like Tully Blanchard with the National Heavyweight Championship on the same show with Arn Anderson, the NWA World Television Champion, with Ole and Arn being the National Tag Team Champions, while Manny Fernandez and Rick Rude were the World Tag Team Champions, while Dusty Rhodes had the America's Championship, and Hawk Animal and Dusty were the six-man tag team champions, and Ric Flair was the world heavyweight champion, and Magnum TA was the United States champion, and you had the Western States Heritage champion and the Mid-Atlantic champion, and that was all within the NWA umbrella in one area. For those who don't know anything about the NWA being a conglomerate of massive promotions all over the country, and they all had their own regional, like United States World Tag Team and Heavyweight Champions and America's Champion and all that kind of stuff. That's why when you go into the record books and try to find the lineages of all these championships, it's so difficult, is because the NWA World Tag Team Champions in Georgia were different from the NWA World Tag Team Champions in Los Angeles, and they were different from the ones in Detroit, and they were different from the ones in wherever, pick another location, And so when people talk about how there's too many championships, I feel like as long as you make the championship matches feel like something and give them genuine consequence, they're actually a great prop to have, because when you have somebody like Orange Cassidy, not in the World Championship picture right now, he's held the International Championship before, right now he's not in the picture for Okada's championship. What do you do with him? And he needs to be chasing something, and this creates something for him to chase. The flip side of that, we do have another championship debuting at the exact same pay-per-view, where we're going to see the Women's Tag Team Championship determined. And that's a match, a championship that absolutely deserves to be there, and I think they should have done a while ago. I'm glad they're doing it now. But it does start to feel like, you have two in this company, and let's be honest, Ring of Honor and AEW are the same company. I'm tired of acting like they're not. You've got two sets of trios tag team championships, two sets of tag team championships, two women's championships, the TBS/Ring of Honor Television Championship, and an interim Ring of Honor Television Women's Championship. You've got, the men, all the men's, it's an obnoxious number of titles. I get it. It doesn't matter as long as you love watching the matches and they feel like there's a reason to be watching them. When I see Okada and Konosuke Takeshita look like they're going to come to blows, and one of them is the Unified Champion and one of them is the IWGP Champion, that's exciting. Those championships mean something to me. The TNT Championship with Kyle Fletcher means something to me. Go over to the WWE side of things. Dominic Mysterio has made the Intercontinental Championship very prestigious, as did Gunther previously. I think he's bringing prestige to the AAA Mega Championship. I think the NXT title is fine. I think even the Evolve stuff is fine. All the major championships on the main roster are fine. The one that might be lacking the most, I think, is the Women's United States Championship, and that's just due to poor booking and lack of time to really showcase that championship on TV and putting Julia in a bad spot to begin with. Should have left the belt on Chelsea Green at this point. But I think championships are a good thing, so I don't have a problem with all the championships. I think it's going to be a good thing down the line if it's built correctly. We'll have to wait and see. Let's get into some other conversation. Tyrus, for those who don't remember, Tyrus, former NWA World Champion. He was, a big thing in WWE for a hot minute and then disappeared. Was in TNA for a little while, retired now supposedly, at least for now. He was speaking about John Cena's farewell match, and he made reference to a couple people who may be there for the match that can be somewhat controversial. One being Vince McMahon, since it's John Cena's final match, and Vince McMahon's the one who gave John Cena this opportunity to be who he eventually became. Tyrus believes that McMahon needs to be there. Maybe not on camera, but he needs to be there. And the other one is the current president of the United States, Donald Trump, who has a history of being very closely linked to professional wrestling, hosting WrestleManias 4 and 5 at Trump Plaza in New Jersey, being involved in the Battle of the Billionaires match with Umaga and Bobby Lashley previously, and now, of course, still a huge wrestling fan, and that he may be there. And the concern of whether that's going to be a problem for fans who are not fans of Donald Trump or whatnot. It's a wrestling show. Donald Trump was a character before he was a president. If you hate him that much, don't watch the show. What do you want from me? I'm not here to be super political. I hate getting too political. I'm a professional wrestling fan. I want to see John Cena's final match, and I really don't care who's in attendance. It's like when people booed Hulk Hogan out of the building at his final appearance for when he promoted the Real American Beer. I don't let that outside stuff impact my pro wrestling viewership, because we are all flawed individuals. Everybody makes mistakes. I'm not here to judge anyone. In my faith system, I believe that's not my job. That belongs to a much higher person on the totem pole. So in the end, I'm going to enjoy the show. I don't care if they're there. I prefer to not see them on camera, but if they're on camera, whatever. It is what it is. It's not going to take anything away from me. If it does for you, I'm really sorry that you allow politics and things like that to be so important that you can't relax sometimes and have a good time. And if that brings me flack on this channel, I apologize again, but it's a wrestling show. It's meant to have characters. It's meant to have drama and heat. And some people would love to see Donald Trump on the show. Some would get lots of heat for having him on the show. More power to WWE if they let him be there. Some other WWE news, there's conversation about 3 potential main roster call-ups from NXT. Number 1 on the list being Jordynne Grace, who is making main roster money already. Fightful Select saying that they believe that she is a strong candidate to be called up to the main roster, followed by JC Jane, former NXT Women's Champion. She had the championship for 150 days, and apparently she is very strongly being considered. And the one that kind of surprised me, it was referenced as being a, quote, sink or swim opportunity on the main roster for Wendy Chu, who has done everything from NXT to making a little dalliance with TNA to Evolve. Kind of like, hey, we need to put you up here and see what you can do and see if you can make it work. If not, they'll probably cut her. But I actually would like to see all 3 of those ladies on the main roster at some point. I think it would be very interesting. That being said, I think, speaking of like the interesting call-ups to the main roster and things of that nature, we have to get into the John Cena tournament. I hated the announcement of the first 2 matches, the Sheamus versus Nakamura match. I feel like there's no pomp and circumstance to it. John Cena's final match is not going to be against Sheamus or against Shinsuke Nakamura. WWE would not miss the opportunity for something amazing there. When you go into the Rusev versus Damian Priest match, I would have no problem with Damian Priest challenging John Cena, just because I feel like it would be a great way to elevate somebody who you never would have expected to be elevated. Rusev, I would have been fine with until he lost so many matches to Dominic Mysterio. So he's not realistic, and I don't think Damian Priest is either. So you start thinking about who else could be a part of this. And when you think about it, there's not a lot of names left that you can really go with that could be that person or that group of people to be in the tournament. You got to suspect, we have 14 other spots. You got to suspect certain people like potentially Randy Orton, Drew McIntyre. You probably have to look at somebody like what the heck is his name? Trick Williams from NXT. I would imagine Carmelo Hayes would possibly be involved in some way, shape, or form. Maybe The Miz. Then you got to think about some of the more interesting ones, like Joe Hendry is probably going to be involved in some way, shape, or form. I would love to see Matt Cardona involved. I think those would be solid ones. I don't love that they teased like the outside the company conversation, because let's be honest, TNA really kind of is within the company. AAA, maybe you do something with Mr. Iguana or somebody like, Psycho Clown or Pagano. But if you really want to pop the people, ready? And I'll preface by saying there is absolutely 0% chance that either of these things takes place. Let me just say that up front, because I don't want anybody to suddenly think that like I'm just insane and I'm giving you some crazy prediction that's not going to happen. Of course it's not going to happen, but that's not what I'm getting at. One of two things. WWE needs to have a gentleman's conversation with Tony Khan. The gentleman's conversation needs to be, why do we have to be at odds? Why do we have to be at war? You do what you do well. We do what we do well. We do things very differently. But in terms of this, we have an Andrade situation right now where Andrade's sitting on the bench because of this 1-year no-compete thing, which is ludicrous to begin with. And if Tony Khan wanted to finance this, could really fight this in court and screw WWE over. They ought to be thankful he's not. That being said, I think it opens the door to the opportunity for what everybody has been fantasy booking, which I don't think is going to happen, but if you made a deal where you will release Andrade from his 1-year non-compete clause to allow Edge, Adam Copeland, to be John Cena's final opponent, I'm in. 1,000%. I think it's a very good negotiation, and it's a doorway into other negotiations with WWE and AEW when you realize you can be friends, that you can work together. If you can work as AEW with CMLL and places like that, if you're WWE and you can work with Pro Wrestling Noah and TNA and other places, then you can make this work if you wanted to, and there's no reason to not want to. It doesn't have to be so divisive. We talk about tribalism in wrestling with the fans all the time. There's more tribalism within the companies than there are the fans sometimes if they're not willing to try to do the right thing. And here is why I want it to be considered so highly, because another person, ready, here comes my real shooting for the moon, absolutely not going to happen. I would love for Hiroshi Tanahashi to be in the tournament. I know he wouldn't win the tournament, even though I would love to see Tanahashi and John Cena. That fantasy match has been booked in many fans' minds for a long, long time if you know anything about New Japan. But if you open the door, negotiate with Tony Khan for Andrade, and Adam Copeland is the final opponent, but you could also open the door to him and with Tanahashi to New Japan, because Tanahashi is the president of New Japan, and set it up so that you could have Tanahashi come in for the tournament, leading to Tanahashi versus Shinsuke Nakamura at Wrestle Kingdom for Tanahashi's retirement match. Think about what this would do for professional wrestling in terms of opening the real forbidden door. Does WWE go to MLW and try to get Bishop Dyer, formerly Baron Corbin, to come in and be a part of the tournament? I would love that. No problem with that. Or Donovan Dijak. Right now, Dijak and Bishop Dyer being the MLW World Tag Team Champions. I would love that. I think it's a great idea. And it heals some of the wounds from a lawsuit they had between MLW and WWE a few years ago. WWE needs to be smart about this. They should be cultivating relationships with everybody, because they are the king of the mountain, and they have access to much more talent if they are endearing and embracing to other groups and other organizations. I think this is the way to broker some things between them and their number one competitor, AEW, and keep AEW at bay. Because it's not just about Tanahashi. And look, on the Tanahashi topic, the word is they still haven't even chosen the opponent. It's got they've narrowed the list down to like 3 people, and they're still not sure who it's going to be. And Tanahashi actually put a message out saying, please wait a little longer. He says, quote, "Please wait a little longer. I've fought many different wrestlers in my career. I will make sure to announce who I want to face." I think he wants Nakamura. I just think it's such a difficult thing to get over because these companies don't speak to each other. I think they need to, just to make that happen. But when we look at, all the other stuff that's going on, that what AEW needs to think about in terms of this negotiation potentially with WWE is Warner Brothers Discovery is definitely going for sale. They're expecting some kind of announcement on the status in December. And that's the broadcast home of AEW. But if Netflix were to make a play to purchase them, the theory would be that their contract would still be valid. So now Netflix would have WWE and AEW on their programming it makes a lot of sense to get those two talking and in a working relationship of some kind. And that would, can you even imagine? Wrestling fans have dreamt their whole life about like all the access to all the talent being on major supercards. Think about that kind of WrestleMania card, you know, with the Will Ospreay versus Seth Rollins matches and things of that nature. It would be beautiful. I think that, I mean, right now they're saying that Paramount is the leading candidate to possibly buy Warner Brothers Discovery. If I'm Netflix, I make a play. I really do. And if they do acquire them, then you have to have the conversation about how do we make these companies, you know, negotiate or be on peaceful terms of sorts, some way, shape, or form. Last thing I want to get to tonight is The Undertaker. As strange as it may sound, his backstage role in AAA. The word is, in Lucha Libre AAA Worldwide in recent months, The Undertaker has pretty much become the creative force in that company. He's the one who wrote everything for Triple Mania, which was held back on August 16th. He is the guy who is they believe that he is more attuned to what the American audience is looking for, and that's why he's taken on this. He's both the brand ambassador and the creative writer for AAA. I'm sure he works very closely with Conan, who has booked for AAA for a very long time, getting a feel for, you know, the different talents and what the fans typically like and want to do. But I think it's a great role for him. I just find it so interesting that Triple H, Shawn Michaels, and The Undertaker basically are running the entire wrestling industry right now, with the exception of Tony Khan, really. Even when it comes to TNA, because I know Silva is the president of the company, but let's be honest, WWE has so much influence over that company, it's ridiculous. So, but we'll have to see. I don't know. There's a lot going on. I love seeing The Undertaker getting involved in some way, shape, or form, giving back to the industry. I think it's wonderful. I think he's a wildly inventive guy. I just wish maybe he would pull back on so many main roster stars or even NXT stars going to AAA. But this past weekend, if nobody saw it, Chelsea Green and Ethan Page went down and won the mixed tag team championship. I don't like that. I really don't. I don't want to see that. I want to see AAA wrestlers win those championships. I want to keep those belts on those people, so it doesn't look like WWE is just basically dissolving AAA, because that's what is a fear of the Mexican audience, and they don't want to see that. They want to keep something their own, and I support that. So hopefully The Undertaker finds a way to book that just a little differently, so that the fans of AAA are able to still feel that that old school AAA experience that they've grown to know and love. That's all the time we have for this episode. Check back with us next episode where we run down the latest wrestling news and rumors. Special thanks as always to Suno for creating the music and sound effects that I use in the show. Today's show sponsored in part by Beazle Games. Bring a new friend to family game night. It's easy with sketchy people. Showcase your artistic side in this game from Beazle Games by going to thegamecrafter.com and picking up your copy today. If you're looking for your next career move, you're considering college or university life, maybe you just need some formal training for your next career decision, go to our website at frolifeplanning.com for all your higher education needs, as Fro Life Educational Planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Dr. Fro. I want to thank you so much for taking some time with us tonight. Until next time, take care, everybody. Have a great night.